We're first going to go over what makes Allard Law unique, and then we're going to talk a little bit about degree benefits, support, and career opportunities in the Allard JD program. And then thirdly, we will go into application process and helpful tips. Now, I'd just like to introduce some of my team members here today. My name is Vivian Tran. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Admissions for the JD program at Allard Law. I have with me today Ursula, who is a 3L's current student at Allard. If Ursula, you can like wave your hand so everyone can see
Hi,
you.
everyone.
Great. And I also have Dana, who is an admissions advisor at Allard Law for the JD program. Dana, if
Hi,
you can just
everyone.
Great. We will, if you have any questions during the course of the program or during the course of this webinar, do feel free to put it into the chat, and Dana and I or Ursula will be answering those questions in the chat, and that we'll also leave some time at the end of the presentation to take your questions as well. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Ursula, who's going to talk a little bit more about the JD program.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. So like Vivian said, my name is Ursa. I'm a third-year student at the Allard School of Law. And first of all, I want to talk about why Allard is a fantastic place to go to law school and some of the reasons why I chose to come here. To start with, it is a leading Canadian law school. In Canada, if you are applying to other Canadian schools, there are a wide range of schools available, and all of these schools are good, but there are certain factors that distinguishes Allard from the rest, and part of the reasons why I picked Allard as my choice to go to law school as compared to some of the other schools that I got accepted into. The first reason is Allard has innovative faculty, and we have over 65 faculty members. And one thing I like about the faculty at Allard is they are award-winning, they're globally recognized, they're experts in their field. So being able to learn directly from some of these people and getting impacted this knowledge is one of the things that I personally enjoy. For example, one of the classes that I would be taking next semester is being taught by one of the professors who have been recently recognized as top 25 most influential lawyers in Canada, per Canada Law magazine. So being able to even just share a classroom with this woman, learn from her, develop a personal relationship and a connection with her, it's something that I personally enjoy. I remember also during my first year of law school, I got the opportunity to learn torts from one of the leading scholars in like robotics and artificial intelligence, which was kind of cool. So I like the fact that we have innovative faculty and very, very like globally recognized faculty at Allard. The second thing is there's also opportunities for local, national, and global research. So when it comes to Allard Law, we're a leader in feminist legal studies, Asian legal studies, indigenous legal studies, and so many more things. And this also kind of goes back to what I was speaking previously about the faculty members and the criteria and the expertise of these members. Because we're a faculty, because we're leading a world leader in these areas, what happens is some of the faculty members have gotten the time to kind of specialize, do some in-depth research. So we get the opportunity to also do directed research with them. And what that means is as an Allard student, you're able to kind of work hand in hand and work on like some of the research initiatives that the professors are engaging in, and you get credit for these. And we're also able to apply for research assistant opportunities during the summer months for pay. So not only do we get to build a one-on-one personalized relationship with our professors, but we get the chance to actually learn alongside them, see what their research is about. And because these are mostly like summer opportunities and upper year opportunities, you're able to form that prior connections with them in your first year of law school. And then you're able to kind of decipher what areas of law you are interested in. And then you can pick those specific areas to do further research in and delve deeper in. And another thing that I like about Allard is the broad and diverse curriculum. So when I was coming to law school, I came into law school with a business background. So my background is in economics and business. So I did consider the corporate law route, but I was still pretty open to learning more things. There was like IP and other areas that I was very, very curious about. And when I came to law school, when I was doing my research about Allard to begin with, I realized that there are wide there's a wide range of electives that we can choose from, over 80 electives. And these span from all kinds of things, from child advocacy to robotics, to IP, to IP and its intersection with human rights, and all kinds of like very, very interesting things. So I like the fact that this diverse curriculum gives me the opportunity to kind of try out the different things, learn the theoretical aspects of these courses, and kind of figure out whether these are areas that I potentially would like to go into. At the end of the day, if you don't know what you want to do or what area you want to practice in when you're done with law school, that's perfectly okay. That's part of the journey. And learning a bit about these courses gives you a taste of what you like, or even possibly what you're not trying to practice in, which is still a good thing at the end of the day. And so, like I mentioned, we have robotics and society, we have cyberspace law, we have human rights, and so many more courses. So no matter what your interest is, one thing I like about Allard Law is there's a course for everyone. The next thing about Allard that I particularly like is that you don't have to confine your studies to just Vancouver. We partner with diverse programs, and we have a legal exchange program with exchange partners from all over the world. So the little red dots and like locations on the map are some of the areas that we partner with institutions. And what this does is it gives us the opportunity to go to these places, and we're still able to continue our legal education, explore that country, learn a new culture, learn a different perspective, which I feel like is very interesting. While I didn't personally like partake in an exchange program, I have a lot of friends who are currently on exchange, and they have so many good things to say. So now I tell every second year law student that they have to consider going on exchange, because it sounds like such a fantastic opportunity. So that being said, these are some of the most popular universities that we kind of have our exchange programs with. Like I mentioned, I do have a couple of friends and peers who are currently away on exchange. So I know we have people in University of Melbourne. I know people who are currently at the University of Hong Kong this semester. And I know two people also going next semester. I have a friend at University of Glasgow. I also have another friend at the University of Edinburgh. And what I kind of like about the exchange program, is that you're able to expand your legal education. So you're able to learn about the legal systems in these other jurisdictions, learn how they kind of interact with the Canadian jurisdiction. And you also get the chance also just explore. As someone who immigrated to Canada at a point, I do appreciate like traveling and exploring and learning other cultures and learning other perspectives as well, because I feel like it gives Oh, sorry. I feel like it gives you a more well-rounded education, which is always like a benefit. You have nothing to lose from something like that. Okay. The other thing that I like about Allied is when it comes to degree options, you're not limited to just one thing. So there are various routes you can kind of go with your JD degree. So most students will do the Juris Doctor, which is a JD. It's typically a 3-year program. And what it is after you fulfill certain other legal requirements, which have been stated by specific law societies in different provinces, you're able to practice in all the common law jurisdictions in Canada, right? So it's kind of very broad. Like for me, I moved to Vancouver for school. So coming to Vancouver doesn't necessarily limit me to Vancouver. I can decide to practice in other jurisdictions, take it wherever I want to go, so long as it's like another common law jurisdiction. Alternatively, there are other people who also pursue joint degrees. So there's a JD MBA, and JD MBA adds an additional year to your education. However, when you're done with school, you're not just graduating with your Juris Doctor, you're also graduating with a master's degree from UBC Soda School of Business, which is also another reputable business school in all of Canada. So that's pretty cool. Another option that you can take your degree, or you can go down, is the JD LLM route and the JD LLB route. And what this does is it's a joint partnership with the University of Melbourne and the University of Hong Kong. So for these two programs, what it means is that At the end of your degree, you're graduating with 2 law degrees. So not one, but two. And you're able to, which means that you can practice in both jurisdictions, right? So for people who have like ties with Australia or Hong Kong, or are just curious and they want to just expand their practice and their legal education, they kind of pursue this route, or they kind of pursue this route, and they're able to get both of them and kind of decide where they want to settle. So it makes you get more options essentially, which is always good. The other thing with the joint degree with the JD-LLM and the JD-LLB is that it will add about a year or two onto your studies, but at the same time you get to stay in these other jurisdictions, and it goes back to the exchange point where not only do you stay here, you're able to learn about their legal systems, learn how they interact with Canadian jurisdictions, explore another country, learn their culture, expand your network. So there's so many benefits with these joint degree options, and you get to decide. And ultimately, if it's something that you're considering or something that you're interested, we do have a very, very helpful and resourceful career services department, which you can kind of set an appointment with, chat with them to kind of discuss and bounce ideas off of them to kind of make the decision that is best suited for you. Aside the degree options, another thing that I particularly like about Allard is the concentrations and the specializations. So we have 4 concentrations and specializations. However, they are not mandatory. But what they do is you, outside of the mandatory courses that you take in your first year of law school and in your upper year of law school as well, you have to take certain required courses in order to meet the criteria to specialize in these areas. So in your first year of law school, how it works at Allard is we all take the same courses, and you're pre-enrolled in these courses. So when you come to law school, you don't have to bother about picking the classes for first year. You're automatically enrolled, and then you are divided into 4 groups. So my year, we're about 196, and it ranges from that to about 200 students per class. So for my year, it ranges from 46 to 50 people, and these 46 to 50 people have been divided into 4. No, wait. So there are 200 people. 200 people have been divided into 4 groups, and those 4 groups will range from 46 to 50 people. And what happens is you take all your classes with these people. So it's almost like a built-in group of people, study group, and you kind of get to know them, work with them, take the same classes, have the same exam schedule all of first year. And so there's that. And then after you're done with first year, then you go to your upper years, which is second and third year. And that's when you can decide whether you want to do a concentration or specialization. Like I said, there are 4 of them. The first one is the environmental and natural resource concentration. And what this does is you take a number of courses that kind of help prepare you for practice in environmental or natural resource law. In Vancouver, environmental and natural resources is one of like the larger fields, and it's very popular. So if this is something that interests you, or if it's something that you've worked in prior, you've always been curious about, that is a route that you can go. You just have to meet the specific course requirements and kind of go from there. And I know there are courses such as mining law, forestry law, where you can take as part of this specialization. The second one is the business law, it entails a little more courses, so maybe a little more difficult to complete just in terms of volume, not like difficulty level, like hard. And the courses include taxation, trust, secure transactions. And what this specialization does is it prepares you for practice somewhere within the business industry or the business law, essentially. However, you don't just have to do courses for your business law specialization. There's also experiential learning opportunities that Allard Law has, which you can take as part of this concentration to meet some of the requirements. So an example is the corporate counsel externship. So as part of this concentration, aside taking some of the classes, you can also do the externship, which is a practical way of learning and getting experience. So the corporate council, you work in-house with some companies in Vancouver. So I know we partner with Lululemon, Tellus. I know there are years where there was like Aritzia placements, and you just work with the legal department of that company. And so the good thing is not only do you get to learn from lawyers who are actually doing it, you get to see the day-to-day, you learn about in-house, and you get to build your network and connections. And some of these lawyers also can end up becoming mentors and connections and people that you may encounter during your practice in the field. So that's the cool thing about it. So you kind of get to design it how you want to, whether you want to do solely courses and meet your requirements, or if you're a more practical learner, you want to do a combination of both, that's available to you as well. The third one is the social justice concentration, which allows you to focus your studies on the use of law to advance and engage with broader justice issues. So here there's like a wide range of courses that you can take as part of this specialization. And similar to the business law, there's also an experiential component that you can take. And the experiential component is our Innocence Project. And the Innocence Project is the opportunity where you get to work with real clients who have experienced wrongful convictions or gross like miscarriage of justice, and you get to work on their file to see how best we can work towards overturning some of these convictions. I know that when it comes to Innocence Project, it is like a rather lengthy process because it's very detailed, it entails a lot of like research and looking into the file and ensuring that we have all our T's crossed, all our I's dotted. So I know that there are students who have gone through the Innocence Project, but it's always refreshing to look back and hear that some of these convictions have been overturned, even when you become alumni. It makes you see that the work that you put into it while you were in school, there's some kind of impact, and you get to see that real life impact, which I feel like it's very, very interesting and very cool as well. And the last concentration that we have is the Indigenous Legal Studies concentration. And for this one, you get to look at a broad range of issues related to Indigenous peoples and Aboriginal peoples in Canada, and also like the social justice and business law concentration. There's also that experiential component, which is always a plus, to kind of like caters to all different learning styles, as well. And for this concentration, the other positive thing is when we're in our first year of law school at Allard, like I mentioned, we do a number of mandatory courses, and there are two mandatory courses that pertain specifically to Indigenous peoples and Aboriginal treaty rights. And these mandatory courses that we do in 1L in our first year, sorry, also counts towards this concentration. So it kind of gives you a bit of a head start, whereby when you get to your upper year, if let's say like your interest got piqued, or your passion, or you're Indigenous or whatever it is, or you want to practice in that area, you already have a head start. So you can kind of like cross those two courses off the list of requirements and kind of work your way through it. We also have the Indigenous Legal Clinic, which also gives you the chance to work with real clients, files for the Indigenous Legal Studies, and that's the experiential version for that concentration as well. Apart from the clinic, there's also a Moot that you can do, which can count towards your concentration for the Indigenous Legal Studies specialization. So in case you want to do a Moot is basically, it's like a simulated court where you're given a fact pattern and then you kind of bring your arguments and make submissions in front of judges. So you can also do that as part of fulfilling the requirements for that specialization. So I did mention a little bit about experiential learning in the previous slides, but I would go a little more in depth about it and what it means. So as part of our curriculum at Allard, there is a mandatory experiential learning component. And what this means is there are various ways you can meet this, but you have to complete it. There is no time frame. You can do it in your second year, your third year. There's no time frame, first semester, second semester, whenever works for you. It just has to get completed prior to like you graduating. And essentially it is a practical way of learning. So like I mentioned, there are various ways. There's three main ways you can fulfill this. You can either do it through clinics and externships. You can do it through a Moot, or you can do classes. So in the next couple of slides, I'm going to explain what each of these entail and kind of give a bit of examples and also like draw on some of my personal examples that I have had in law school. I know for me personally, I learn better when it's more practical, when I learn by doing. So I truly, truly appreciate it. And I remember even in my personal statement, I remember when I was answering the question of why I wanted to come to Allard Law specifically, one of the reasons I had written down pertained to like the experiential learning. So I was interested in the Innocence Project and the Rise Women's Legal Center. So those are two things that I was passionate about for different reasons. But I like the fact that I had a lot of options to pick from in case I wanted to do any other ones. So for me, I really appreciate the experiential learning, and it was genuinely one of the reasons why I chose to come to Allard. So for the clinics and extensions, how it works is depending on what area of law the clinic is kind of centered around, that determines the kind of client you interact with. So for the business law clinic, for example, your clients would be businesses. Criminal law clinic pertains to criminal law issues, Innocence Project, and the corporate counsel I had mentioned previously. And then Rise Women's Legal Center, which I actually ended up doing, and I'm very happy I got to do it. What that is I got the chance to work with, I think I had about 15 client files, which I was responsible for. But I had the chance to work with these 15 individuals and assist them with family law related issues. And our clientele is mainly racialized and marginalized women. But what I really enjoyed about it was not only was I developing my advocacy skills and public speaking skills, but I also got the chance to actually see the impact of what I was doing. So like I got the chance to go to court, make submissions, get like child support, spousal support for my client. And for me, it was just such a rewarding feeling because not only was I obviously fulfilling that, but I was also like giving back. I was also helping and being a change. And that's the core of who I am. And that's part of my reason for going to law school. So I was very happy about this. Um, there's also the field course that we see on the bottom of the page. And I just wanted to talk briefly about the field course. So this field course, it's a special field course where you spend about 7 weeks in the field and outside. So you spend it with professors, your peers, and you're camping and living on local Vancouver Island locations. And essentially what happens is you work with policymakers, you work with the elders in the community, and you work in collaboration with UVic students as well. And you're out there making impact and learning about experiences that pertain to Indigenous people specifically. For most of the clinics and extensions, they're not all offered every year. The field course, for example, is not offered every year, but hopefully because it's a 3-year degree program or 4-year if you're doing a joint degree, hopefully that gives you like a solid amount of time to kind of go through the cycle of things coming and going and essentially being able to do the externship that you are passionate about or you truly want to do. So no matter the situation, either way, I feel like throughout my 3 years, most of these, minus the field course, most of these have been available, which for me, I enjoyed and for me just gave me like more options for like experiential learning. And usually for most of these, how it works is you would apply for them. Some of them have interviews, some of them don't, and they get back to you with respect to the application sometime later in the semester, I think in the summer. The other thing I want to mention is some of them are semester long and some of them are kind of part-time. So for Rise, for example, it was semester long. So in my second year, first semester, the entire semester, I was not on campus. I was downtown at the Rise Women's Center, and it was a 15 credit course that I did all semester. And at the end of it, you write a paper and you pick your topic, write on whatever you're passionate about, and that's how you're kind of assessed. The second way you can fulfill this requirement is through Moot. So in first year of law school, what happens is you get the opportunity to do a 1L mini Moot. And what that means is you go to the simulated court, but because it's mandatory, you get the opportunity to kind of assess whether you like or you are interested in moods. For me personally, like I said, my background is business and economics. So I didn't get a chance to do any moods or debates or anything in my undergrad. So it was my first experience in like a court simulation. So I really appreciated it. It helped me know whether I wanted to do upper year moods or not. And the other interesting or the other thing that I like about the moods is that they are on specific areas of law. So if, for example, in your first year, you particularly enjoyed like your property class or constitutional law or whatever it is, you can pick a moot that centers around that area of law. You wouldn't necessarily have the fact pattern when you're applying, but you would have an idea of what area of law the moot specializes in, and then you can kind of pick and choose based off of your interest. So ultimately, you're doing what you want. The way Allard Law works is that they give you a wide range of opportunities to pick something that truly, truly interests you, you're truly passionate about. And it's almost like there's something for everyone, irrespective of your interest or background. So I really like that as well. I didn't do a moot, I did a clinic, like I said, but I have a couple of friends who did some of the moots, and I know some of them are in Vancouver and some of them are like in Kamloops, out of province, and like Ottawa and things like that. And some of them take you outside that way. So not only is it an opportunity to kind of meet new people, experience, partake in this like learning, hone public speaking and advocacy skills, but they're also able to like learn as well from the lawyers and the judges who are experts and who kind of judge and coach students during the moot. So for whatever moot you apply to and whatever moot you partake in, there are judges who you make your submissions to, and there are lawyers who kind of like coach you throughout the preparation process prior to making your submissions. So working directly with these lawyers in the field or practicing lawyers in whatever field is a good experience because you get to build that network. You can get that rapport with them. You can talk to them about their practice. You can learn from them most importantly. So I truly like that as well about Allard. And if, let's say, clinics or moods are not necessarily things that you're particularly interested in, that's also okay because Allard gives you the chance to fulfill this experiential learning through courses. So essentially what happens is these courses have they have a very huge practical component to the extent where you still get that practical learning. And as such, it meets the requirement for the experiential learning. And so these are a list of some of like the courses that meet this criteria. Like I mentioned earlier, and for me, I'm very, very heavy on practical learning. I feel like I grasp things more, I remember things more, so I particularly enjoy them more. So aside the Raj Women's Legal Center, which I did in my second year, first semester, and I fulfilled that requirement, I am currently in child advocacy and resilient learning in a time of change. So for child advocacy, what happens, the class that I'm in, there's two of them, but the one that I'm in, what happens is we have a judge who is the lecturer. So we get to learn about advocacy skills, about what it's like to like cross-examine, how to cross-examine expert witnesses, what that entails, how to make submissions, all these key topics and components that are part of your day-to-day as a litigator. We learn all these skills, and it's good to learn from a judge as well because he's been practicing for so many years and then became a judge. So he has a lot of experience and has gotten the chance to see different ways by which people make submissions. So he can give us like tips and tricks that we can kind of take on further in our career and legal journey. And he also brings guest speakers, and these guest speakers, I know we've had prosecutors, defense counsel, we've had partners from firms come to talk to us. So just having such a wide and versatile and diverse group of people coming to talk to us gives us the opportunity to kind of ask them questions about their practice, learn what it entails, learn about some of like the cases without divulging too much confidential information, but just how to address certain scenarios. I really like that. Then the other class I'm in is resilient learning in a time of change. And what this class is, it's very different from the typical law school class, but I really enjoy it because it encourages different forms of learning, different forms of expression. It's about the class centers about making changes in the legal industry and playing our part in ensuring that these changes apply in our daily lives, we incorporate it in our daily practice and our legal journey. And next semester, I'm taking negotiations and dispute resolution. So like I said, I really do like the experiential learning component. But the good thing about it is even though you need just one to fulfill the requirement as part of your JD curriculum at Allard, you're not limited to just one. You have the opportunity to kind of, design your educational journey however you see fit while staying within the parameters that the curriculum spells out. But you can do multiple. I'm doing multiple. You just have to design it and structure your timetable in a way where it works out nicely for you. So I also like that. So whether it's clinics and externships, whether it's Moot, whether it's courses, there's something for everyone, which is another thing that I really like about Allard, and which is another thing that makes Allard like a fantastic option for law school. I know before I came to law school, one of the things I always thought about was what can I expect when I come? Like, what would my day-to-day look like? What can I It was almost like I was trying to predict what it would look like before I came here. But this slide helps to give you an idea, a taste of what to expect. And from the perspective of someone who has been going through it for the last 2 years. And so the first thing about Aled that I particularly enjoy is their welcoming community here. So I moved from Calgary to Vancouver. So when I moved for law school. So when I moved, I didn't know anyone here. So I really appreciated the community that I found and formed at Aled. So what happens is even though law school is a journey and we know that it entails and there's a lot of reading and there are different things that we may encounter, the community that we have makes it better, which is why I like the fact that they put in processes and clubs and other measures in place to ensure that there's a smooth transition, to ensure that everyone feels like they belong, which I truly appreciated as someone who's not originally from Vancouver. So in the bottom left corner, it highlights like some of the clubs that we have at Aled. Now, this is just like a snippet of what we have. We have over 40 clubs from all kinds of things, we have Law Review to Women's Caucus. We have the Black Law Students Association, which I'm a member of, and which I truly, truly appreciate the support I get from them. There's an Indigenous Law Students Association. There's an IP club. There's also the Mallard Law Bird Watching Club, where apparently you actually do bird watching. But there's also that. And we also have our Law Students Society Club. So for short, we call them the LSS, so for Law Student Society. And what the LSS does is they kind of oversee all the clubs present at Allard, and they're almost like a liaison between the faculty and students. So for example, if let's say there's any time where there's any kind of curriculum changes happening or any kind of things that affect our students, they are in charge of ensuring that our feedback and our views get taken across the faculty so that whatever is being implemented or whatever revisions are being made, our views and our feedback is incorporated into that since it pertains to us. So that's one thing about the Law Student Society. And the other thing that they also do is they also organize events. So I know every year they organize our annual Halloween party, and they also organize our annual boat cruise, which is a cruise. So it's usually like earlier in the fall semester where it's a cruise where it's open to all 3 years or all law students, and we get to go on like a cruise around the Vancouver Harbor, and you get to meet people from all years. So when I was in my first year, I only knew people in my small group, but going for some of these events gave me the opportunity to kind of meet people, not just in other small groups in first year, but in second year and third year, because it's an informal setting, there's less pressure, you're able to like chat and have fun. So I really like that as well. So these are some of the ways where a welcoming community is fostered at Allard. Like I mentioned, I'm a member of the Black Law Students Association. I know that they also host events in Black History Month when there are specific occasions and things. They also organize these events to ensure that even though some of us are not from Vancouver, we're not left feeling homesick, we're still feeling belonging, community, and there are also initiatives that we put forward on behalf of Black students and ways we can kind of expand and grow the Black community at Allard, which I particularly really enjoy. And the other thing about Allard is you can rest assured that there's support for learning. So like I mentioned previously, when it comes to first year, we're divided into 4 groups of about 46 to 50, and you kind of have classes with these individuals all year. So you learn to form friends. I know some of my friends, some of the people I met in 1L or in my first year, I met in my small group. And to this day, we're still friends. We do our studying together. We have fun, go for karaoke, do things outside of school. We've formed a friendship. And it's only because like every single day of the week, I was spending time with these people. Like you get close real fast, real quick. But it's also less pressure because you're able to study with them. You guys have the same professors. You probably went to some of the classes. And it's also helpful because we usually form like a group chat. So sometimes if let's say someone is under the weather and they were not able to make it to class, I remember people would just post in the group chat and someone would offer their notes. So we used to work together and kind of help each other progress. Everyone had everyone's best interest at heart. So I really like that. And there's also the peer tutor program where you are matched with a peer tutor who did very well in a subject that you're looking for a peer tutor for. So if it's property, for example, you're matched with an upper year student who did very well in the class and who also had that professor and or was in the same small group as you. So at least there's some commonalities. They can give you tips and tricks about how they kind of maneuver their first year exam period, studying, preparing like your outlines for exams. So there's that resource as well. We also have legal buddies, which is primarily run by the Law Student Society. I remember in my second year, I was a legal buddy as well. And in my first year, I had a legal buddy. So what this person is almost like a friend who you can kind of ask questions, all the questions that you don't want to ask maybe someone in your class or like your professors, you can ask them because usually your legal buddy either was in the same small group as you or had similar professors to you or just knows more than you do because they've been through the experience and they can let you know. So I remember in my first year, just because of how much I got from the program, I decided to apply for it in my second year. And then I had a legal buddy who was in first year in my second year who I was talking to, encouraging. Sometimes it's even just like a rant and you just reassure them because it's a new territory, not like we've never gone to law school, most of us, right? So it's a new thing we're learning. So just that reassurance also goes a long way. So that support for learning is also something you can rest assured and know that you will have once you come to Allard. And the last thing that I also want to talk about expectation is there's a support for well-being and development. Um, for the fact, and this is in various ranges, from faculty to the students here and upper year students to career services to admissions, everyone here wants you to succeed. I remember in my first year, I took a bit of a break in between my undergrad and coming to law school. So transitioning into law school was a little challenging. In my undergrad, we predominantly did exams. We didn't read cases. So I struggled with that a bit. So I remember at some point in the semester, I'd gone to see some of my professors and just to like kind of ask a lot of questions, express like my confusion about some of the topics. And one thing I truly, truly appreciated was even though I went there with questions, they always took the time to get to know me as a person. Like they always remembered that I was a person first, learned about my interests, what I like, what I don't like, how the process is going. And I really appreciated this because this is how I formed personal relationships with some of my faculty and some of my professors. And when it came to a time where I was applying for scholarships or like job applications, some of these professors who I used to go and complain to have become like lifelong connections who provide me references till date. So I really, really appreciated like faculty taking like a keen interest in your development and your success. And there's also a dedicated well-being counselor at Allard. So the well-being counselor at Allard deals specifically and only with Allard students. So the fact that they have been dedicated primarily to the law school speaks to the commitment that Allard Law has to their students' well-being. So whatever the issue is, you just book an appointment with the counselor in the Calendly system, and you're able to go see them. It's confidential, it's a resource, and you can talk to them about whatever you want to talk to them about. It's usually short term though. So in case, let's say you go and you're able to do only so many sessions, that's still okay because it can point you to further resources that you can use in case you need like a longer term resource with respect to like counseling. Allard also has student funding and grants. So each year we have donors who contribute so much money to the school, and there are a lot of like scholarships, applications, grants, fundings, which helps in terms of alleviating costs for some of the students. And I know that some of the fundings and grants also help with like research when it comes to students in the Masters of Law program or other programs within like the Allard community broadly. And there's also mentoring and advising with our career services department. So no matter what you encounter, sometimes it's like it's confusion. Sometimes you don't know what you want to do in terms of like your long-term career plan. These are resources that are available at Allard, and you can talk to these individuals who are specializing in mentoring and advising, who have been doing this for so many years, and who have the necessary resources and skills to kind of direct you to the right path. So in terms of what to expect, I have all good things to say. Like these things are things I have personally benefited from. I have personally like encountered and have participated in, and I can definitely attest to like the youthfulness as not just as a first year, but as a first year, second, and third year student. And lastly, like I mentioned, we do have a career services office. So when people come to law school, they come to law school for different reasons. There's a number of people that come to law school with the intention of practicing in the industry. But if you're also coming to law school not to practice, or if along the way you decide that you don't want to practice, that's also okay. Irrespective of the path that you decide to go down, the career services office is well equipped to put you in touch with the necessary resources to advise you, to coach you, and to help you, set yourself up for success in that way. So we have that resource available. And I know usually it's about a team of 5. So there's quite a number of people to kind of cater to all the law students at Allard. And it's also like an appointment system where you can book appointments with them. I know for me, when I was figuring out some of my courses and how I want to kind of structure and pick and allocate the time for my courses, I know I'd booked an appointment with the career services office, and they were super helpful. They sent follow-ups to ensure that everything was addressed from the meeting, which I really appreciated. The right side of this page also shows some of our statistics at Allard. So when it comes to our alumni, we have about 12,500 people or alumni practicing worldwide, which speaks to like the wide variety of people that attend Allard. So you don't have to be from Vancouver to go to school in Vancouver. You can be from wherever. I moved from Calgary. We have people from all over the province and international destinations as well. However, when it comes to like employer locations, because we are a school based in BC, naturally, like most of the alumni end up practicing in BC. So we have about 93% practicing in BC. That is not to say that people have to stay in BC. So I moved from Calgary to BC, and I will be moving back to Calgary once I'm done with my legal education. So I'm part of the 1 point something% that went back to Alberta. What I would say is that typically and historically, we realize what we've seen is there are a number of people that come from Ontario to BC, for example, or to Allard Law, for example, for law school. That number of people represent about the same number of people that go back. It may not necessarily be the same group of people, but the number of people kind of ranges around the same. And when it comes to our employment rate, we have a very high employment rate, which means that the people who go to Allard, about 99.38% of them are employed, who choose to be employed are employed. And also when it comes to people who have secured articles, so when you finish your law degree, prior to getting called to the bar, you have to complete like an articling of about 10 to 12 months, depending on the jurisdiction. And when it comes to our alumni from Allard Law, about 97% or over 97% have secured an articles within 10 months post-graduation, irrespective of whether this was in first year, second year, pre-third year, after third year, within 9 months post-graduation, almost over 97% have secured a job, which is phenomenal. And it kind of went for me when I saw these stats, it kind of gave me a bit of comfort knowing that at the end of the day, they're the necessary resources that can help set me up for success and that can put me on the career path that I have chosen to be on. We also have 4.3% of people who end up becoming sole practitioners. So this also speaks to the wide range of people and the diverse group of people admitted into Allard and who have passed through the four corners of this school. We also have an internal career system with job postings. It's called ACE. So on this platform, the career services upload jobs. So whether you're looking for summer jobs, you're looking for part-time job during your degree, whatever it is, this system kind of conglomerates everything in one database, and you can kind of go through to see what exactly you're looking for and apply for them. For me, I know when I was applying for my summer opportunity in my first year of law school, after my first year of law school, I used the A system and I applied through there and ended up landing a job through the formal recruit process. I know that's a resource that I used highly. And another thing that the career services does as well is to also host recruiting events such as on-campus interviews. So I remember when I was in 1L and I was my first year and I was going through the recruit process, I wasn't sure what to expect. I don't know anyone who are lawyers in my family. And the other thing too is law interviews are a little different from like other interviews. So it was helpful to have the career services office around because I was able to book an appointment with them to do a mock interview and kind of run through potential interview questions, which for me was truly, truly helpful. And so that's a summary of some of the reasons why I came to law school and some of the fantastic qualities that Allard Law has. And now I would like to pass it on to Vivian, who is going to talk about admissions and the application cycle.
Great. Thank you so much, Ursula, for sharing your experience of being a law student at Allard Law. We're so lucky to have you as one of our students and for you to share so openly about your experiences. Great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the application timeline, and this information is going to be useful for those that are applying for the upcoming September 2025 entry, but also is going to be useful for those that are applying in future years because the timelines are roughly the same from year to year. Now, just let me make sure I have the right content here. Okay, there we go. So right now, the applications are open and we are working towards the December 1st deadline. So December 1st, make sure if you are applying for the September 2025 entry, make sure you submit your application before December 1st, along with things like your transcripts and your LSAT scores. And offers will start coming out around that time as well, the first round of offers. Now, noting the December 1st deadline, we will accept also the January 2025 LSAT writing for the September 2025 admissions cycle. And roughly by May, most offers will be out and we will continue to be rolling out remaining offers, space permitting, until August from our wait list. Now, we do have three application categories. One is the general category, the second is discretionary, and the third is the Indigenous categories. And I'll go into these ones in a bit more detail in the following slides. So with regards to the general category, this is our largest category. And how we assess this category is kind of a balance between your GPA, your LSAT score, and your personal statement. Now, with regards to your GPA, we do exclude the 12 worst credits if your fourth year is completed, or if you are just submitting with 90 credits, 6 credits will be excluded. Now, with regards to the LSAT score, we look at your best score. So if you write the LSAT multiple times, we will be looking at your best score with a limit of 3 attempts per testing year and 5 attempts in 5 years. With regards to the personal statement, it's a set of open-ended questions totaling about 1,300 words, and it's an opportunity for you to present a little bit more information about your purpose for joining law school, and just an opportunity to tell us who you are beyond obviously your test scores and your GPA. Now, one of the benchmarks, or what we would call kind of academic thresholds for you to know if you want to apply for the general category, for example, would be some of our median scores. So the median GPA in the general category is approximately 84% on the 100% scale that UBC uses, and that is including the 12 credits of exclusions. And an LSAT score as a median of 166. No, if you're not exactly at this median, please don't panic. It's really just a median. It's a guide, right? And also like performance, like if you had like higher grade performance, but slightly lower LSAT, that can balance off your overall academic index. So that's one way that you can kind of know whether you belong, whether you want to apply to the general category. Now, with regards to like GPA, one thing I would say is like, I think a lot of people have questions about like, what does 84% translate to if you're like, let's say on a 4.0 scale or on some other type of grading system. We actually have a calculator. So if you just Google Allard JD GPA calculator, you're going to be able to find the converter and how to convert your existing GPA, depending on whichever scale you're using, to this 84% that we use at UBC. So let's talk about the discretionary category. So this category is for applicants that might have faced disability, hardships, or special needs, or just a more challenging route in their academic journey, for example, which means they might not meet some of those admission thresholds in the general category. So in order to apply for this category, we require roughly the same kind of information as the general category. So we will need your GPA. Now, the number of years of college can differ depending on the circumstances that you're coming to us from in terms of the discretionary category. We also still require the LSAT. And then a personal statement. So this personal statement is going to be a longer personal statement for you to allow to really explain the circumstances surrounding kind of the journey that you had towards law school and some of the challenges you might have faced as a discretionary candidate. In this particular category, we do actually require reference letters. In the general category, you'll note that we don't require reference letters, but in discretionary, we do. Now, we prefer one to be academic and one to be professional, but let's say you've been several years out of school or 10 years out of school and you don't have professors that really remember you anymore. In those circumstances, it's fine to use two professional references. Now, finally, we have the Indigenous category. So Indigenous peoples of Canada may apply under this category. And the documents we require for this category are very similar to the discretionary category. So reference letter, preferably both academic in this category. But again, we can make exceptions if you don't, like if you need to use a professional reference, for example, you can't find a second academic reference. We again need the LSAT score and your GPA and proof of Indigenous ancestry, which could be an Indian status card, Métis identification card, or some type of attestation from an elder, for example. So we will prioritize candidates that show a commitment to community in this category. So they are either involved with or committed to Indigenous communities or organization, and ideally intend to use their legal training to advance Indigenous concerns and initiatives. Now, along with these three categories, we have a parallel process called the Black Student Application Process. And this is basically a parallel process where students can apply under any of those three categories, depending on which one's most appropriate for their profile. And basically, no additional documents are required. But what will happen is that your application under the BSAP process would be expedited for review by a dedicated file review committee with majority of its members being Black. And this is really to highlight the fact that we understand that Black students are underrepresented both in law schools and in the legal profession. So this allows for like an expedited review of files in the BSAP process. So just to ideally offer timely decisions for applicants opting for this pathway and offer individuals a platform to recognize and share their experience of celebrating Black excellence. We do have a webinar actually dedicated to the BSAP process coming up next week. So we'll leave the slide on for just a couple of seconds. If you want to just take a photo of it or screenshot it, feel free to join us. It's a webinar event, and that's happening next week in the evening from 6 to 7 p.m. in Vancouver time. And then finally, if we just move to the next slide, cost and funding is often a question that we always get from students. So we do have a robust kind of funding pool from a variety of different sources. Some are entrance scholarships, some are donor-based scholarships, and then we also have a very robust bursary program as well. So if there's too many to name, so what I would just recommend you do is just Google JD or Allard JD scholarships, and you'll see a whole bunch of different types of scholarships available, both for entering students as well as continuing second and third year students. We also have a calculator. So if you Google like Allard JD bursary calculator, you can actually plug in your details and see, kind of get an approximation of what type of bursary funding you might be available to you as an Allard student. So those are some of the avenues where you can check the financing that might be available to you to help finance the cost of your education. What we always recommend is also look into loans as well. Don't always just completely rely on potentially getting a scholarship or thinking that your bursary is going to cover more than you think. It's always good to have just a backup option of having loans available should you need to tap into them. Like sometimes you might have that option available, but you don't tap into the loan. But just researching it is always a good idea. And then, of course, we do have dedicated scholarships for Indigenous, Black, and people of color students. Just a few years ago in May 2022, Allard announced 12 new annual scholarships available to IPOC students. And they are a representation of the school's commitment to building a vibrant law school community that celebrates and supports equity, diversity, and inclusivity. And you can see a little bit more about this on that website on EDI awards. Finally, I would recommend that you connect with our student ambassadors. So Ursula is one of our student ambassadors who we're very lucky to have. But we also have a number of other student ambassadors from a range of different backgrounds, from students from out of province to students that are from Vancouver to mature students who are raising a family as they are also going to law school. So their profiles are all on our website. So if you Google like JD ambassadors, Allard, you'll see kind of the page where you can book a law school tour, you can email our ambassadors, and you can read their profiles and see yourself hopefully reflected in one of those profiles and connect with them. So it's a great way for you to get to know the law school ahead of time, and also feel free to connect with our team. Our next slide here will show some of the team members we have in JD admissions. There's me, there's Gareth, Dana has also joined us today. Cherry is our admissions assistant, so if you ever call in, very likely you'd be speaking to Cherry. And of course, Ursula is also has another posting as our student recruitment coordinator, a work-learn position at UBC. And finally, just before we go into your questions, because I see there's quite a few questions that have come up in the chat, and we'll get to those in just a moment, but just a few tips for your application. Just make sure you answer the questions clearly. Avoid the cookie cutter approach, right? We also often get questions about what are we looking for in applications, but it's more actually like who you are as an individual and what brought you to law school, right? And that is telling a very unique story that reflects the diversity of who you are and why you came here and what you plan to learn and contribute when you become a lawyer. So engage with the questions meaningfully, reflect on what it means to you, and don't be afraid to be authentic and be yourself. Reference letters, just a quick note here, we do not require them for the general category. Now, if you are applying under the discretion or Indigenous category, make sure you pick people that can speak strongly of your character, that still remember you. It's always a good idea if you do need references to just have a meeting with the reference that you want to talk to and just kind of go over your rationale for, why you want to go to law school and remind them of some of the cool things that you've done under the relationship. Like if you're picking a professor, for example, maybe it's a professor where you wrote a really compelling paper and you did very well, like remind them of the things you've done. Sometimes it's a story of like you were in that class, but you went through hardship, right? Like you started off poorly and then you engaged and you showed resilience and you actually finished the course strong. So that could be a good story as well. So, every story is a little bit different, but make sure you do talk to your references beforehand and remind them of who you are and tell them a bit about what's bringing you to law school, and that will help them write you a good reference letter. Prepare your documents early and submit your application early. We are coming towards the last couple of weeks. So for those of you that are finishing up your applications, thank you for being here for today. Now, for those of you that are a year or two out, this is great. It's fantastic that you're here learning more about law school right now, so that you have plenty of time to write the LSAT, rewrite if you need to. It's very common for people to write the LSAT more than once. I think 2 or 3 times is actually the norm. So if you start early, like 2 or 3 years ahead, that means you have more than enough time to write and then reassess, bring up your test taking skills and then rewrite it for a second time. Now, remember, for those that are applying for the September 2025 entry, we will be accepting the January 2025 writing, but just make sure you submit everything else by our December 1st deadline. Okay, so we are on to the question period. So I do see quite a few questions come up in the chat. I also welcome, if you want to just ask a question, you can feel free to just unmute your feed and ask a question as well. So I'll just kind of scroll up here and see what kind of questions we have. And I'll just kind of go in the order of what they're coming from. So the one question is, what does Allard look for in candidates? So that I was trying to address that earlier, but please, we're not looking for a cookie cutter mode, right, with candidates. We are looking for authenticity. We're looking for a sense of self-awareness. So you know who you are, you know why you want to come to law school, and it just comes out naturally in the course of the kind of your answers to the questions in the application. So we're looking for authenticity. We're looking for people that have a strong sense of self-awareness and just having it come out naturally in the application process, and know that we're not looking for a certain type of candidate, just people that know what they're getting into and have a strong desire to make the world a better place through a legal education. Okay, more questions here. Amir, would you like to ask a question live?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So for the second category, you guys mentioned that if you've experienced factors such as disability, hardship, special needs, then you could apply to that. But on the website, it also talks about if you have relevant experiences and achievements. For example, if you've done a lot. Would you recommend applying to this category? And my second question is that if you don't get accepted through that discretionary category, then would you be entered into the general category, or is it just discretionary category?
These are all great questions. So what I would say to that is, when you're looking at the different categories, consider, I would always go starting from general category, discretionary first. So if you meet the academic thresholds, or you're close to the academic thresholds for the general category, I would just apply for the general category. If you're unsuccessful, there's broader base kind of admission, like based on grades and things alone. There's still broader base admissions, like a more holistic process that we would look at candidates that perhaps don't meet the academic thresholds for, let's say, a presumptive offer early on. Okay. Now, the discretionary category, yes, it could be for people that have different types of work experience, but primarily that category is like, if you have those types of work experiences and for some reason you don't meet those academic thresholds, in that circumstance, I would say the discretionary category can be an appropriate channel. You won't generally. Sometimes we would move people from the discretionary category if the grades are high enough into the general category, but I would say just kind of choose the category wisely, so that you start off in the right category.
So if you meet the grade and the LSAT and your personal statement is strong, you would recommend not choosing the discretionary category.
Yeah, if you meet the grade thresholds for the general category, I would say consider the general category first.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah. I see a hand up from Alexa. Would you like to ask your question live?
Hi, good afternoon, Vivian. I have a question because currently I am an international student, but I am planning to pursue law school. So my question is, does the course take Monday to Friday, or do I have an option to be a part-time student while doing my job at the same time so I could also support my study?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do allow for part-time studies. But you'd be basically on like a 50% course load as a part-time student. And I think I'll maybe defer to Ursula like on her thoughts of like working and also studying at the same time to just give you a student perspective of what that's like.
Okay,
Okay.
hi, thank you for your question. So I know that in first year, most of us were like, well, mo in just my entire year, most of us are full-time students. And the reason why that may be more preferable in some cases is just because of the workload. Law school does entail a lot of time, a lot of reading. So being able to commit 100% makes it a little more easier to kind of navigate and maneuver that system. I know there are some people who have part-time jobs. So for example, I'm doing a work line with admissions, which means I'm working part-time as part of my educational journey with the admissions department. So I know people do have part-time jobs while still being a full-time student. However, when it comes to being a part-time student, as a law student, I know that there are certain situations that may require that, but when that happens, you will have to speak with like student services, have a conversation with them, and kind of like give context as to why you have to shift from full-time to part-time and then kind of go down that route. But more often than not, most students are full-time students and then we have part-time jobs. Does that help answer your question? If not, I'm happy to give more context.
Yes, thank you. I get that. So it's more
Okay.
advisable that I take a part-time job and go full-time student.
Yeah, like in my first year, I didn't even work just because I wasn't sure what to expect, right? Like during my undergrad, I always worked with school, but when I was coming to law school, just because I didn't know what to expect, I took my first year to kind of test the waters. And once
Mm-hmm.
I found my feet after first year, in second year, then I could decide how I wanted to set it up. And now in third year, I'm working while doing like a full course load, right? So that's what I did. That's what's more preferable. That's what I would personally recommend, but you
Mm-hmm.
know yourself best. So just make the best decision for yourself.
Thank you. I have additional question. For JD, sorry, for
No,
JD
that's fine.
MBA,
Yeah.
how long will it take to finish the 2 degrees?
Okay, so the JD MBA, I do know that it adds about a year on top of your typical duration for the JD. So the usual JD is 3 years. So the JD MBA would add about a year. And this is because 1 year out of your education, you're taking courses with UBC Soda School of Business. So that's the logic behind that. And when it comes to the JD LLB and the JD LLM with University of Melbourne and Hong Kong, I know it's about 1 to 2 years on top of it. But then you get to kind of live and study in this other jurisdiction and explore the interactions with that legal system and Canadian legal system. So it's a win either way.
Okay, you've answered my question. Thank you so much.
Of
Thanks,
course.
Alexa. So let's take
Thanks.
a look into some questions in the chat. Oh, I see a little bit of confusion about the test date for the latest LSAT test date for the September 2025 entry, which is the entry that we are currently admitting for. The last test date we'll take is January 2025 for the September 2025 entry. Okay, like I think there's some talk about 2026. That's only if you want to apply for September 2026, which is in another year after. So for September 2025 entry, your application must be in by December 1st, 2024, with the final LSAT that we would consider in January 2025. Hopefully that clears up, but if there's further questions, please feel to pop it into the chat. So I see some questions coming in here now. Would you recommend for a neurodiverse student, such as those with ADHD, applying under discretionary hurt our chances, or should we try for general? Again, when it comes to like the category, I would look at your grade thresholds first. If your grade thresholds and LSAT scores meet or are kind of similar to the grade thresholds that are published in the general category, I would say try the general category first because there's still broader base admissions we would consider you under if you, let's say, don't get a presumptive offer based on grades, for example.
I know there was also a question about whether tuition is required to be paid at the start of each year or if it's separated into semester payments. So we pay per semester. So fall semester, you pay for fall, spring, winter, whatever, you pay for that as well. There is like a deadline, so it's not due on the first day of classes. So I know there's like a bit of a buffer few weeks ranges depending on the situation where you're able to like pay by the deadline of each semester, and then kind of go from there. We also do have like a financial and enrollment services department that you can kind of talk to about financial related situations, challenges, whatever that looks like. So I know there's also that resource as well. Hopefully that answers the question.
There's a question about, do we have statistics about the median GPA and LSAT of admitted applicants in the discretionary category? We don't publish that, and we don't want students to really focus too much on that because the discretionary category is more a holistic process. So we would just say, obviously, your GPA is going to be what it is. Obviously, you might have chosen this category because the GPA was not as strong, or the LSAT and the combination of the two didn't meet some of the medians. I would just advise just do the best you can. And we're not as number focused in the discretionary category, specifically because it's discretionary. So we don't usually publish statistics on that, primarily because we don't want people to self-select out of the process if they have a good reason for going to law school, and there's other factors that we can consider beyond just your grades, which is exactly what that category is for. Okay. All right. May I know the pathway, what if there's a pathway for mature students, like 10 plus years of working experience? Okay, so, Dana has mentioned, yes, you can consider the discretionary category, but again, here I would say, like, if you happen to have really good grades and a good LSAT score, even as a mature student, you might still also consider the general category. Now, and if you are kind of far off of those medians, then you might want to consider the discretionary in that case. But we don't have a specific mature student category, only because mature students can really end up in any of the three categories. So just choose, I would say the first thing is to just look at your kind of your medians for your GPA and your LSAT, and then see, like, would I actually just qualify for the general category, even as a mature student? That could be the right category for you.
And just as a follow-up, like I just also want to echo that, like law school has people from all walks of life. Like one of the people I'm in law school with, she had a previous life. She was like an anesthesiologist in her past life. She's gone to medical school, finished that, came. So just as a reassurance, like there's no one size fits all when it comes to law school. And what they look for is they look for diversity. They're not just looking for someone who has just gone right from kindergarten right to law school directly. I took 3 years off in between. People came directly, people had a prior life. I know there's someone who I'm in class with now who has been practicing for like maybe 20, 30 years in nursing. Now he's in law school. So just as like a reassurance, take it from me, like it is very diverse, and like all skills, they look for diversity. Just, I can't emphasize it enough.
Yeah. And part of this discussion is just to dispel the myth that we are looking like only for a certain type of candidate. Like we really, like, some of the reasons why we don't do things like publish medians for certain categories is because we recognize that it's not the only measurement that we should be looking at. So one of the reasons why some of the things we do is just to make sure everyone feels included, and absolutely don't self-select out of the process just because you think we're looking for a certain thing or like a certain profile that you may or may not fit. Now I see some more questions here. Can I submit an addendum with the personal statement? So that's, I would say, maybe send us an email about that, Ashif. It depends on like what you're trying to communicate to us. It might not necessarily need to be kind of an addendum. So Dana, if you could maybe just put our general admissions line into the our general admissions email into the chat. This is Ashif, where I would recommend you send us the query and then just explain what addendum you're trying to kind of explain so that we can.
If they are waitlisted, will they only know they are waitlisted in August, or will they know before?
No, they would know generally before. The waitlist decisions don't come out until the new year, though. First, some waves of offer will come out first, kind of starting in this year, and then the waitlist decisions will start to come out into the new year. Okay.
I think we may have a raised hand, Alexa.
Yes, Alexa, do you still have a question? It might just
I'm all good, thank you.
Okay, cool. It was just a raised hand from before. Okay, let's see here. May I know how much the tuition fee is for non-PR or non-Canadian? Okay, so we can also put a link to that for tuition fees, Dana, but I believe the tuition fee for non-PR, non-Canadian is about 43,000 Canadian dollars per year for an international applicant. Oh, great, Dana already put the thing in there. Okay, tuition question was answered earlier. How many courses can be enrolled to be considered a full-time student? Perhaps I would defer that to Ursula, who can talk a little bit about what full-time student status means.
Okay, so in your first year of law school, it's going to be 32 credits, and for first year, you're automatically enrolled. So you don't have to pick, you just attend, just come, show up. And then in second year, per semester is 15, which corresponds to 30 per year. So that's the full-time course load.
Yeah,
Also
and
the other thing, oh, sorry. The
continue,
other
please.
thing the only other thing I would say is some people do courses in the summer, so then they may have less than 15 during the school year, which I believe is okay.
And then I think Alexa had a question in here for class sessions. Is it Monday to Friday, generally speaking?
Okay, so for first year, it kind of when I was in first year, we had classes Mondays to Fridays. And again, because we are automatically enrolled, the timing, we don't get a say on that, we pick that. And it has its perks. Like I figured out what kind of classes and what times I liked for my future years and upper years. So that, I know when I was in second year, the first years at the time had a day off. So I believe it was Monday that they had a day off. However, even if you don't get a day off in first year, when you come to upper year, you're in charge. Like you can pick the courses you want based off of your interest. If you're a morning person versus afternoon, like one of my friends, she doesn't have any class before 2 p.m. and that's what she likes. Whereas for me, I have a few morning classes and I balance out my courses that way. My rule since first year is I don't want classes on Fridays. So since first year, I have not had a class on Friday. So some people have twice a week. And the other thing to that, I'll say, if you're doing a clinic, sometimes because you're doing a clinic and it's also for credits, if it's like like a 6 credit clinic, for example, you may only be in class physically maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So you may have 2 days off where maybe you have a clinic, you're doing your own like personal study. So you mix and match as to what fits and floats your boat basically. So it's up to you, but that's how it works.
Okay, let's continue on these questions. Thanks so much for all your questions. This is excellent. Is there a rough median of how many spots are considered for the discretionary category? As well, I was curious as to the portion of students that are K-JD. Now, perhaps I think it's Kelvin, you can I'm unsure of what K-JD means, so maybe you can give us a clarification.
It's like kinder JD. Basically, it's when you go right from kindergarten and then go through school, undergrad to law school, no breaks. We
Okay.
call it kinder JD. That's the terminology.
Okay,
Unofficial
I'm a bit
terminology.
new in my role, so this is the first time I've seen this, and it's a very interesting term. So maybe I'll start with that. Like, I would say actually quite a few students are actually in that category where they kind of go straight into it. I would say actually the majority of students are in this way. I guess they're just very determined to be lawyers, and they've always known it in their bones that they wanted to be lawyers. So I would say the majority of our students are kind of this K to JD category. Now, in terms of discretionary category, I would say, now it's not an allocation, it's more just kind of what happens from year to year. I would say probably about like 20 to 30 students will enter the class as discretionary candidates, but it varies from year to year.
There's a question from Yasmin that I wanted to answer. Are all the classes in person or are some of them online? So almost all of them are in person. However, some professors will record their classes, but not every professor records, right? So the short answer is it is in person. However, quite a number of people will record. So I know there are days where you can't make it because you're under the weather, or maybe you're away on like a Moot or something. You can get your professor to record, even if they don't typically record. So for me personally, every February, the Black Law Students Association nationally in Canada hosts like a conference in some location. So like this year I was in Toronto, last year I was in Halifax. And for me, it's something that matters to me, and it's something that I would like to go to every year. So every year when it comes, I talk to my professors and let them know, hey, this is what is happening. I get their blessing. They send me recordings, my friends send me notes. So that's how it works. I'm trying to think of if there is any online specific course. I don't think so. But 99% are in person. And then the other question that I wanted to answer was about how difficult it is to balance taking classes and getting involved in experiential learning in upper years. I'll answer this in twofold. I'll answer it experiential learning being balanced with classes, and classes being balanced with extracurricular. So experiential learning and classes, it's not too bad because experiential learning is subbing some of the classes you're taking. So for example, for people who take clinics that are not semester long, or moots moots are not semester long. So you would have maybe like 6 credits or 9 credits or 12 credits. That's 12 out of 15 of your credits. So whereas for a 15 credit semester, you may be in 5 classes, when you have like my friends who took the clinics that were not semester long, they had maybe 3 classes and then their clinic. So it's just a balance, but it's not an extra. So it's not the time that you would be in class, you're using it for your externship, essentially, is what it is. So it's not super hard to balance that because it's just doing something else. And there's pre-set out times for some of them. So I know the business law clinic, for example, on like maybe Mondays and Wednesdays, you guys meet in a specific location and work on things relating to that. If it's a semester long clinic like RISE and like what I did, you're not on campus at all, Monday to Friday, and I think Monday to Thursday actually for like a majority of the time. You're at the clinic, you get Fridays off to work on your paper, and that's how you kind of balance that. When it comes to classes and extracurricular, now extracurricular is something you've added onto your course load. Like it's an extra thing you're doing, whether out of passion, whether out of desire, whatever your reason is. But usually you're doing this because you want to do it. So it's not mandatory. You get to choose how many extracurricular you want to be a part of, what kind. And usually some of them, like, they would kind of spell out the commitment. So when I was in my first year, I did Pro Bono Students Canada. So I did something called Consent Project, where you kind of go to different high schools and kind of talk to them about consent and certain like important topics such as like sexual assault and things like that. And for that, what happens is like when I apply, they tell you that, okay, the commitment is 2 to 3 hours a week or like 3 to 5 hours a week. So you can kind of balance your life to kind of accommodate for those extra things. But again, because these are things that you choose to do, you kind of assess whether you have capacity to do it and you don't take too much on. Now, in case you do take too much on, it can be like a learning opportunity. And then the next semester, you can kind of maybe like rejig it and maybe take maybe one less extracurricular and spread it out a little more, is how to kind of balance that.
Okay. Let me just see. I think we might have gotten through all of these questions.
There's a question about whether there's any publicly available examples of successful personal statements for Allard Law. I think this is a Vivian question, but I will say that because every story is unique, my answer is there is not, but I'll let Vivian give context.
I would say, please don't look for other people's personal statements. This personal statement's it's a personal thing, right? Like, so when you ask those questions, we're like, I think this person's going along the route of thinking we are looking for a cookie cutter approach, and it should not be. Even if there were examples of personal statements out there, I would say ignore them. Don't go on Reddit, don't go on the forums to look for examples of what's going to make you successful. Have the courage to be yourself. Like law school is hard. It is but it's so rewarding. You are basically part of a group of people that are going to uphold the fabric of society. And, you know, you need to know it in your bones that you want to do this, and you need to be able to tell your own story and and have the courage to be who you are and not just follow the flow, right? Lawyers know how to question the status quo. They know how to think outside the box. So don't go looking for an example of what's going to make you successful. Tell us the story of you and how you are going to approach this law school journey and what brings you to it. So even if there were examples that have been posted, I would say, please don't follow them. Please write your own story for us. Ursula, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, and the other thing that I would say is, the truth is being fully transparent. When I came to law school, and a lot of people have kind of struggled with it. You struggle with imposter syndrome. Like you're in class with so many brilliant people. The work is different. The work is hard. The case look like it's a lot. But one of the things that, and I personally struggle with imposter syndrome. I'm not gonna lie, I really struggled with it in first year. But one of the things that kind of helped me, minus like support from faculty and friends and stuff like that, is knowing that I'm here because they wanted me, right? It sounds a little cliche, but I wrote my personal statement based off of my personal experiences, based off of my journey, my immigration, or whatever it is, and my background, and I got in. So just kind of going back to that kind of was, even if it was like this little bit, it was a little bit weird. Even if it was this or this, it was reassuring because I knew that I was here for a reason. I knew that I belonged, and believe it, like when you're in law school, you're gonna get it, but it helps to know that like you have a seat here and they wanted you, like they picked you, right? So I would just echo that it's very, very important to write your personal statement. Like just sit down, think about what matters to you, think about the story you want to share, think about what makes you unique. It is a bit of like a journey. I get it. Like sometimes it's hard to know, what should I write? Should I be vulnerable? Should I not be vulnerable? Just be you, be genuine. Trust me, like it will speak volumes. And I always say that I feel like the reason why I got into law school, a huge part of it is my personal statement, because I had varying ranges, like my GPA and my LSAT, I think balance itself out. And then I think my personal statement helped me as well. And it was my personal story, right? But when you get to law school and you're having the imposter syndrome moments, and I'm 80-90% sure that a lot of people have it, it's part of the things that give you comfort knowing that you're here because they wanted you.
That's very well said, Ursula. And this is why, like, as soon as I hear people starting to compare, like in the admission process, I'm like, let go of that habit, like right now, because it will not serve you once you get into law school, because we're all unique. And then if you get into any law school in Canada, it's already a deeply competitive process. So of course you're going to be in a group of people who are all amazing. Now, what you can do with this group of people is to use each other as like social scaffolding to support you through the process. But as soon as you start to compare yourself, I think that's like where like the imposter syndrome comes in, where it doesn't have to be there. Of course, like, you know, you can experience it, but like you got to rationalize it as well. Of course, you're going to feel like there's going to be a tendency for like a lot of imposter syndrome to come out in a group like this. So this is why we have a lot of support systems. And instead of looking comparatively with your peers, look at them as your network of support instead. You know, if you see them succeed, like instead of being like, oh no, why am I not? Being like, what are they doing that maybe I can like model so that I can also be successful? Or maybe I can ask them for some tips on how to be this way. Don't sit in imposter syndrome by yourself. And certainly at the admission process, one thing I would say is don't compare yourself. You are so unique, right? Tell your unique story and hold on to that, because that's what's going to get you through law school. Comparing yourself to others is not. So I'll leave it with that like little preachy sermon there to not compare yourself, to just be yourself and have the courage to do that and be self-reflective. This is a process. Admissions is like, I know it's, you know, kind of daunting and it feels very high stakes, and it is, but just be the courage to be yourself and know that your diversity matters. Now, I appreciate you guys have been with us for so long, and I do know that we are at the end of our kind of allocated time. So maybe I will leave the last words to Ursula. There's one last question here. Do you have any last tips for anyone approaching 1L and how to parse through the readings and studying methods. And I think what I would add on to this, because I want you to have the last word, is, you know, any last tips for someone kind of sitting at where you were 3 years ago, you know, looking at the admission
time has
process.
flown. I know, time has flown, first of all. I think if I could go, just that if I could go back to pre-1L me, I would first of all reassure myself that I do belong in different capacities and I have what it takes. That's number one. And number two, just to bounce off a little bit of what Vivian said, like the people you're going to school with are going to be your future colleagues. Like whether it's opposing counsel, whether it's in the same firm, whether it's the people you go for drinks with, for karaoke with, like these are good resources and everyone brings a different perspective. Like you guys can both read the same thing and you would catch things they wouldn't catch, they would catch things like you wouldn't catch. So it's a resource. So kind of approach it from that perspective. And in terms of when I was applying, I would say that take some time to think about if, let's say, someone could describe who you are or what you bring to, like, how would that sound like? Because I think that kind of helped me. And if there is something that's unique to who you are, your story, when you're having like a chat with someone and you're telling them about yourself, like the things you kind of share, that's part of your story. But also do research, like research the school. Let admissions know why you want to come to Allard. Like all the Canadian schools in Canada are good. I'm biased. Allard, come to Allard is better. But there's a reason why you want to come to Allard. So highlight that, answer the question, give context, and also proofread. Like proofread your statement, get people to like proofread for you if that helps as well. And when you come to Allard, and you're in 1L, just know that it will work out. It's not gonna seem like it, but it's gonna work out. Like everything works out. You're gonna figure out how to read cases. In the start, everything seems like it's taking hours and hours, but you learn how to read. It sounds weird, but you learn how to read cases. You learn how to read case law. You read like a lawyer. You learn how to question things. I remember for me when I came, I had the tendency to almost just take decisions from the court. But like it's almost like my professors wanted to know, okay, well, what do you actually think? And it was kind of like I was kind of shocked. I was like, I mean, that's the decision. Why do you want to know what I think? But they want to know what I think. It's part of like that intellectual process and stuff, but it will all work out. Just put your best foot forward and do the research. And when you do get into law school, just know that you belong and find your team and your support and have the best experience, I think. I think that's what I would say. Hopefully I closed it off nicely, but yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. And thank you to those of you that have